The following is a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys. The Siniard Law Show, answering your legal questions, featuring attorneys Tommy Siniard, Bart Siniard, and your host, Aaron Dacey. This is the Siniard Law Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Siniard Law Show. I'm Aaron Dacey. Each Sunday night we answer your legal questions. Tommy Siniard and Bart Siniard are a father-son legal team right here in North Alabama. Tommy's been recognized by the best lawyers in America for 31 years, and his son Bart was honored by the best lawyers in America 3 years running. This evening on the Siniard Law Show, we're learning about injuries at work. Joining us with expertise on this topic are Bart Siniard and Harrison Lane. So Bart, there are differences between workers' comp and other injury claims.
Yeah, it's a whole different ball game when you're injured on the job. And brought Harrison Lane with me here tonight, who's getting a lot of experience handling workers' comp case. But in most injury cases, you have the ability to collect all these different types of damages like pain and suffering, mental anguish, some terms people may have heard. Workers' comp is completely different. It's mostly based on formulas. A lot of it is hard math. Now there's some gray areas in those formulas, but you don't get anything for pain and suffering or mental anguish. You can't usually sue your employer for negligence. So if they broke some safety rule and you got hurt, it may not matter. So there's a lot of big differences if you're injured on the job versus being hurt in a car accident, for example, or having a trip and fall at an apartment complex. A lot of different laws involved, and we look forward to getting into that tonight.
Yeah, so some of those terms just come in the movies then, it sounds like.
Pretty much that, or any other kind of advertisement that people see. And kind of the running joke is you slip and fall somewhere, you get injured, you're going to get $1 million, or you're injured at work and you're going to get $1 million. But that's not always the case. There are a lot of differences within it, and Bart alluded to it a little bit earlier in the sense that there is no pain and suffering, there is no mental anguish. When you're injured on the job, your only compensation, if you will, is through the Alabama Workers' Compensation Act. We'll dive a little more into that throughout the show, but in specifics, what it means is that there is no pain and suffering, there's no mental anguish. I hate that you've been injured and you've been at home and you can't sleep and you're dealing with pain, but unfortunately, as of now, Alabama law doesn't allow for it.
We have some great questions coming up. And like you said, we'll dive deeper into these topics. So Bart and Harrison would love for you to reach out to us with your legal questions. They're happy to answer your questions right here on the Siniard Law Show. All you have to do is call us at 844-7000-LAW and leave us a voicemail, or you can email us at questions@siniardlaw.com. Now we take you to our legal tip of the week. Jerry and Mary have emailed us asking, is there a time limit for filing a small claims case? In short, our contractor won't complete a job. How many times have you heard this?
I've gotten that call before, several times. Yeah, so there's always a time limit to any potential legal dispute. It's called the statute of limitations. And that time period, that deadline you have can vary depending on what type of case it is. Harrison, walk Jerry and Mary what they need to know in regards to a statute of limitations, which probably on a breach of contract type case.
Sure, absolutely. And, Jerry and Mary, thank you for reaching out through email. A lot of you can reach out to us through email, and we're happy to answer your questions. What you need to know, though, when you're going through it is, what is that deadline? What time do you have? You don't want to delay, but life happens. Things happen that keep you from maybe getting to an attorney or getting your case filed. In this specific instance, you're looking at 6 years under a breach of contract claim, at least under Alabama law. If it were to occur in Tennessee, that statute of limitations may differ, so it's important to know what your state laws are with that. There are other important statute of limitations that come up whether you've been injured or not, and we'll talk about the workers' comp aspect of that. But Bart, what are some of the other things that we see, or maybe what's the most pressing statute of limitations that people need to know about?
And y'all keep this in mind. Tennessee, some of our viewers are in Tennessee, is different than Alabama. I'm going to walk through Alabama right now. In Alabama, in any type of personal injury claim, that's car accident, nursing home neglect, medical malpractice, slip and fall at a store, dog bite, anything where there's a physical injury due to the wrongful conduct of somebody else, the statute of limitations is 2 years from the date of the incident. And so if you haven't settled that claim and you haven't filed a lawsuit within 2 years, then you lose your case. It's called an affirmative defense, the statute of limitations. To make things even a little trickier, in Alabama, if it's a municipality, a city, or a county involved, then it's even shorter. And you say, how could that be? Well, if you have a city garbage truck, that rear ends you at 50 miles an hour and puts you in a wheelchair. Well, if it's the city, a city employee on the job, then you have to file a notice of claim with the city clerk treasurer within 6 months of the date of the incident. So it's actually even shorter statute of limitations. Claims against a county are 12 months. So if a county or city is involved in any way in your case, you gotta keep that in mind. Your time clock is shorter.
And that's why we encourage a lot of people to reach out as early as they possibly can. Because most people, the example Bart just gave, you're hit by a city truck. If you don't know about that 6-month deadline and you don't reach out, file that notice of claim, it's gone. That is the end of it.
It's better to at least initiate it, even if you decide that you're not going to file a
lawsuit. We want to get started sooner than later. In a lot of our cases, there's a lot of work we want to do before the statute of limitations gets there.
Right.
Walk them through that.
Well, a lot of it too is gathering evidence, determining are there any witnesses, specifically in a car wreck, but certainly in other types of cases as well. Evidence will disappear. It's sort of water in the sun. So if you're not careful, you're not on top of it, that can all go away. It can be really damaging to your claim.
Yeah.
Now, since we're talking about being injured on the job, is that deadline, these deadlines are really short, is that the same in personal injury cases?
It's mostly the same, but the statute of limitations in a workers' comp case can be extended in a lot of situations. Tell them about that, Harrison.
Yeah, so, and Aaron, kind of what you're asking, workers' comp is different in a multitude of ways, but certainly based off of its statute of limitations. And the reason for that is you got 2 years from the date of your injury with workers' compensation to either resolve your case or file a lawsuit. But in Alabama, the Workers' Compensation Act actually gives you a tolling period, or will extend that amount if you're receiving what is called total temporary disability, or TTD payments, where your doctors held you out of work. So it would be from the last date of that payment. So we oftentimes see people who have a year or two of medical treatment. They're not in that 2-year deadline, but a good rule of thumb is always going to be that 2 years.
Let's get back to our email inbox. Paul wrote, I was in a fight with a coworker of mine while we were at work. We were both roughed up pretty good. I tried to start a workers' comp claim, but was told that I was being denied workers' comp. I'm still in pain, but can I get any medical treatment? What can I do to get some medical treatment? Bart, you take this one?
Yeah, so I've actually had a few cases very similar to this. One that went up to the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals. And it's hard to distill it into a short answer, but this is basically it. If the fight, the altercation that breaks out is about something work-related, then it is covered under workers' comp.
So a girlfriend fights.
Girlfriend fight, or come to work after the Alabama-Auburn game, and that's not going to be covered. But I had a case, where two guys who worked for a landscaping company got into an argument about who was supposed to be using which landscaping equipment. And there was a fight, and one person was bad hurt, who I represented. That's supposed to be covered. Now, and there's also this one caveat. The fight has to be arguing about something work-related, and in a lot of situations, you cannot be the aggressor. You can't be the one that initiates physical contact. That can be a defense as well. So, general rule, if it's something that you're arguing over that's work-related and you're not the one who actually starts the shoving match, then it should be covered.
So Bart kind of touched on some of the defenses to workers' compensation. Do you have any more to add to that?
Sure. So, I'll just touch on a couple. But one that we see is what's called an idiopathic defense. You may ask what that is. I wish I could spell it. But given how it goes is that you don't know how you were injured. And we do see that. We get calls on that a lot of times. And it's an absolute defense to your workers' compensation claim. You may ask, how does that occur? Well, you're injured at your job, you're uncertain as to what happened, you get a phone call from workers' comp and they ask, well, what happened? And your response is, well, I don't know, I just fell. Well, you've now given them that idiopathic defense because you stated you don't know how it occurred. So you have to know how your injury occurred for your workers' compensation claim to continue. Another defense is also intoxication, kind of like Bart alluded to. After an Auburn-Alabama game, some people might still be a little intoxicated at work. And because of that, you're held at fault in it and they deny your claim. So those are just a couple of things to keep in mind.
Yeah, we might as well cover ourselves before we even get started.
Right.
Thank you very much. When we return, Bart sits down with Rosanna Cox to talk about the Semper Fi Veterans Group.
I got sandwiched between an 18-wheeler and a truck. During the accident, I lost my left leg. I chose Siniard Law because my granddad knew they had a great reputation. They were very knowledgeable. They were very sweet. We had a connection. They pretty much treated us like family. I would definitely recommend Siniard Law because they are caring and they will help you get what you deserve. If you've been injured, call Siniard Law.
As you know, Huntsville is a big hotbed of veterans and all kinds of veterans activities. We have Heroes Week coming up. Bart is with a special guest to talk about the Semper Fi Group.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm here this evening with Rosanna Cox, a friend of mine, somebody in the community who I have a lot of respect for. She is the community outreach liaison for the Semper Fi Community Task Force.
Yes, that's
that that does a lot of great work in our community, particularly for veterans. And as part of this show, we want to invite people on who do good things in our community, who assist with organizations that just give back and deserve a spotlight. And you and your organization are certainly one of those people. Tell us a little bit about Semper Fi and what y'all do here in the North Alabama area.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you so much for having me on your show today. Semper Fi Community Task Force is a nonprofit organization. We're a 501c3. We actually started in 2006. A couple of Vietnam War veterans said, you know what, let's do something special. I don't want any other veteran to ever come home to nothing. So they did like a little welcome, and it was just like a day event. And then in 2007 was when we incorporated into a 501c3.
And so it's been operating, I guess, ever since then, almost 20 years now. Tell us a little bit about what the organization does on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis.
Well, we do a lot throughout the whole year. You know, our big event is coming up November 7th through the 12th is Heroes Week. But there's a lot we do throughout. We have Gold Star Racing, which is for the Gold Star families. These children, they build these little boxcar race cars, and they get to go out and just have fun. We also do a lot of outreach in the community as far as for families that run across hard times. You know, we have either the spouse or either the children, somebody has, you know, just something going on where medically or financially it puts them in a hard, you know, place.
Yeah.
And we're able to assist with either paying their electric bill, sometimes mortgage, car payments, a little bit of everything.
Every little bit helps. Is Semper Fi just Marine specific, or is it different branches of the military? What all types of veterans are you helping?
No, we help every single branch out there. It started with Marines, but we do help with every single branch. And then about 3 years ago, we incorporated and brought our first responders on as well. They're just as important as our veterans, and we have had a few that come out for Heroes Week that we're here local. So we had one of our sheriffs that was actually from Athens, Alabama.
Yeah, let's talk about Heroes Week, because that's upcoming. Veterans Day is upcoming. Tell us what Heroes Week is and some of the events y'all have planned coming up here in the next, week or two.
Yes. So Heroes Week is a week full of what I say R&R. For the veterans that we bring in. We're going to go to Guntersville on the yachts.
Okay.
We have a school that does a concert for them. All the kids, sing. It's really neat. And then different organizations, as far as some churches, will feed them. We go to Cabela's. They sponsor a big special day for them.
That's all in this upcoming Heroes Week?
Yes.
If people are watching, any veterans out there, where can they go to gather all this information?
Well, first of all, our local TV stations, a lot of them will have that on there, but we do have our Facebook page as well.
Okay.
We do have all the information on there, pictures from before.
On a personal level, I hope you don't mind me asking, what drove you to become part of this organization?
Well, back in 2017, my son was in the Army back in 2005, and he got injured. And when he came home, I noticed that something wasn't normal with him. This was my, go-getter, was going to go to law school, just very outgoing. When he came home, it was like staying in his room, basically had just done away with society. And we got a phone call and we said, hey, I think it'd be a great thing if you go to this event. And we're like, never heard of it. So I met with them and we came out. We stayed at the Westin for the whole week. And let me tell you, not only did they give me my son's smile back, because I hadn't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
It basically gave him part of his purpose back, as he put it. These men and women that come together, and they're all volunteers, all of us are volunteers, are there day and night. If you want to cry on the shoulder, if you just want to talk about something. We had 2 individuals at an event of Heroes Week 4 years ago that came, and both of them were at the same place, but in different areas. And they both suffered the same tragedy. Neither one of them knew that either one of them were there. And when it took that one to tell the other one, you did everything you could.
Yeah.
That's all it took. And that's what it took for my son, it's just being there. So ever since then, I said, what do I have to do to get involved?
Yeah.
I want to give every mother, every wife, any family member hope to not give up. Keep pushing forward. And, it's not easy. I will tell you that. It's not easy at all. Some of the stuff that I've had to go through, and challenges and sleepless nights and, worries, but don't give up.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Well, it's really inspiring what you and this organization are doing for veterans in our communities in North Alabama. But it takes time and money from community partners to get this very important job done. I mean, that's got to be true, right?
Yes, it does. We couldn't do anything that we do without our community partners. I mean, we have so many government organizations and small businesses as well that say, hey, I want to contribute. Our employees want to do $10 a month out of their paycheck, and we're grateful for anything that we get. Yeah. But everything is done with our local partners here.
Well, Rosanna, I really appreciate you being on here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And if I could give you something that we normally do, if I just said, this is one of our coins, I want to thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you.
And that's our new coin.
Look at that. Thank you so much, Rosanna.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you for being here this evening.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Bart. Harrison, it's great, all these things that are available to us here in the Tennessee Valley.
Absolutely, and Rosanna's certainly not short of anything amazing in what she's doing in helping veterans, those people who have served our country, and we certainly support her and love being able to support people right here on the Siniard Law Show, just throughout our community, and highlight some of the amazing things that we as a community are doing. It's a special thing.
We learn something every week, that's for sure. We appreciate you allowing us to highlight this. And when we come back, we'll tell you how you can get free legal tips to your email inbox.
Our firm, Siniard Law, we represent people who have been injured due to the negligence of somebody else
I think we separate ourselves by not only our experience, but our community involvement and our dedication to every client.
The people of North Alabama are very important to all of us because this is home.
We are a Huntsville law firm that cares about Huntsville and North Alabama. If you've been injured, call Siniard Law.
Welcome back to the Siniard Law Show. A quick reminder, if you'd like to sign up for Siniard Law's newsletter, you can get free monthly legal tips. Just scan the QR code or sign up at siniardlaw.com. Now back to our email inbox. Sarah writes, I was moving a pallet at work. It slipped out of my hand and jerked my shoulder. It didn't hurt too badly at the time, but as the weeks progressed, it got worse. A couple of weeks later, I reported it to my boss. Workers' Comp is saying that I didn't report my injury in time and denied my claim. Are there any options to have my shoulder treated? What do y'all think?
Well, you can always get it treated through your own health insurance, but that doesn't really help you in this instance. You know, there are deadlines for workers' compensation, reporting it to your employer, and you may be asked, how do you prove that at the end of the day if you just went to your boss and said that this happened and I hurt myself? It's important to keep those things in writing, whether it's an email or something that you can trace back to the original source to say, hey, here's the proof that I sent notifying everybody of the incident and the injury. But there's even more specific deadlines. Bart, you want to talk about some of those as far as the time frame that you actually have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument you only have 5 days, in fact, to report a workers' comp claim.
She had like kind of a delayed onset of this injury.
There's a lot of exceptions to that, and we're usually able to kind of wiggle around that. It's rarely an issue in workers' comp because usually it's a traumatic injury. Everybody's fully aware. But, you know, even if you state it verbally to a supervisor, somebody in some type of supervisory capacity, you can get around that notice rule. But it is important that if you think you've been hurt on the job, having any symptoms, report it to your boss, to a supervisor, to HR. They will do, or they should do, what's called a first report of injury, single page document that's a form where you fill in, you know, your name, address, all that stuff, and a description of how the incident happened. Most legitimate businesses with their HR departments know how to do it. But, you know, we've had cases where somebody didn't report an injury to their boss, I think it was a lower back injury, and they called us, you know, 4 or 5 months after it and still hadn't told their employer. And I just had to tell them, listen, I don't think there's anything we can do. You know, we'll try, but if they bring up this notice defense, I think we're going to be out of luck. So, you know, if you pull a muscle on the job, even if you think it's just a pulled muscle, go ahead and tell your boss, because that's what my example was. It ended up being more than a pulled muscle. It was a herniated disc in his spine, and he needed surgery. Just err on the safe side and just report it, even if it's just verbally. Report it.
All right. Well, we've spoken a lot about employees tonight. Is there a difference between the different types of employees, and are some people not really considered employees?
There is that's out there. I mean, there's a dichotomy, so to speak, under the law between employees and independent contractors. Independent contractors are not covered under workers' compensation insurance. And there's a legal test for whether somebody's an independent contractor versus an employee. And that's essentially, did the boss reserve the right to control how you did your job? So we run into that issue a lot.
And we do. And it's interesting. We'll get people who reach out to us and say, I'm an independent contractor. What are my options? We dig into it. We look at what the evidence is. What did they wear to work? What time were they there? What tools did they use? How long could they use them? I mean, all of these different factors into determining that you may have thought you were an independent contractor, but at the end of the day, you really weren't. It turns out you are considered an employee under Alabama law, and therefore you're entitled to workers' compensation benefits.
So those independent contractors, they have to carry their own insurance?
They have to protect themselves, and if a lot of people don't, and if they get hurt on the job, they're essentially working for themselves. They you got to rely on yourself. Disability insurance, health insurance. There's a thing called occupational incident insurance. A lot of people don't have it though, just because they don't.
Expensive,
It's another bill they got to pay every
yeah,
month.
for sure, and they're trying to just make their way at their business. So we have another email. This person says, I was driving a company truck when we were T-boned at an intersection. I tried to make a workers' comp claim with my boss. He told me that we don't have workers' comp. This is a good question. Is that even legal?
So,
in short, it is.
Well,
Really?
as with any legal question, the answer is it depends. And so in Alabama, if a business has 5 or more employees, they are legally required to have workers' compensation insurance. And that's, just because it's legally required, though, doesn't mean they all have it. But there's a punishment for it. If they don't have workers' compensation insurance and they have 5 or more employees, then the injured worker can be entitled up to twice the amount of money he would be entitled to if they did have workers' compensation insurance. Well, you say, well, that's good news. My case is worth twice as much now. Well, that may be true, but the problem is now you're going after your employer's money and assets. And that can create a financial strain on the employer, who may just fire you and deny paying you anything and blame you. But that's what the law is. They got to have workers' comp coverage. And if they don't, the employer may be on the hook for twice the normal amount.
And the amazing thing that, along with this question is they were T-boned. And, that brings up an entirely different topic of what would be considered third-party liability along with your workers' compensation case. So in that instance, if your employer did have workers' compensation insurance, you could treat or have your medical bills paid for through workers' compensation and also make a claim against the person who T-boned you at the intersection. And it can be a bit of a complicated process in doing that because you're dealing with a lot of different parties, which is why we encourage people to reach out to us, especially when they're in a scenario like that, because there's a lot of moving parts that need to be handled. Imagine trying to do all of that on top of being laid up in bed with your leg in a cast or something like that.
Yeah, and before we wrap up, I need to tell everybody the 3 main benefits of workers' compensation claims. And there's number 1, and a lot of times it's the most important, is 100% of medical treatment has to be paid for by workers' comp insurance. And that's both now and forever and ever into the future, at least for the body parts that were affected in your workplace injury. They also have to pay you 2/3 of your average weekly wage while you're out of work on doctor's orders. And then the third thing is, and this is where we particularly get involved, is if you have some type of permanent disability or permanent impairment. And it doesn't have to mean you're completely disabled. Even if you had to have a rotator cuff surgery, you've got a permanent disability under Alabama law, then you're entitled to money for that based on a complicated set of formulas. But those are the 3 main benefits.
We do appreciate both of your expertise, and we look forward to learning more from you next week. We encourage you, our viewers, to get your legal questions answered here on the Siniard Law Show. You can leave us a voicemail. Just call 1-844-7000-LAW or email us at questions@siniardlaw.com. We'll answer your legal questions you have, but next week we're focusing on insurance claims. Bart Siniard and Barnes Hayward will tackle that topic, so feel free to reach out. Look forward to seeing you next Sunday night after the late news.
The preceding was a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys.